right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So once again, I am Dr. K, the HBCU Division Chair for NASPA Region 3, and I am so excited to kick off another series of HBCUs Educate. And today we're talking about customer service at HBCUs. And we have a guest speaker, Jeffrey Pierce II, who is currently the Director of Admissions and Recruitment at Tuskegee University. And he's coming to us with a wealth of knowledge as it relates to customer service and its framework for the HBCU space. And so I will not take away from his time, and I will give it all over to him.
Thank you, Dr. K, for the opportunity. Thank you to those who are joining the webinar. Good morning to some, good afternoon to others. I do appreciate you all taking time or making time in your schedule to join today's webinar around customer service at HBCUs. I like to start off my presentations with a quote, and that quote is from Maya Angelou. And she said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." So again, I'm Jeffrey Pierce II, serve as the Director of Recruitment and Admissions at Tuskegee University. And ultimately, I help institutions of higher education with creating a culture of service on their campuses, and really want to push this message across higher education of how we can treat our students the way we would want them to not only treat ourselves, not only someone treat ourselves, but someone to treat our family. So with that, on a deeper level, who is Jeffrey Pierce II? So for starters, I take pride in calling myself higher ed customer service visionary. I've been a husband for the last 8 years to my beautiful wife. I've been a father for the last 6 years to our son, Jace, who is actually having a birthday in a few weeks, so he'll be 7 soon. I've contributed op-ed articles to the online views section of Diverse Education magazine, and I'm also the recipient of 2 awards that highlight my exceptional display and commitment to customer service. And lastly, I'm a self-published author of a book titled "Be My Guest, a Guide for Creating an Ultimate Service Experience." But enough about me and more about what we'll cover today and what you can expect to walk away with at the end of this webinar. So what can you expect? So of course you can expect to walk away with 5 elements to boost the customer service experience in an HBCU environment. But in addition to that, you're going to walk away with why customer service is important at HBCUs, your very own personal definition of customer service, and a new and easy to remember customer service philosophy. Now, you can also expect this not to be your typical webinar where you'll only sit and receive information. So instead, you can expect to be an active participant in the chat. There are going to be a few engagement activities just to really add some substance to the 5 elements that we'll cover today. So let's jump right into it and talk more about the importance of customer service at HBCUs. Now, it's not a secret that customer service is important, but I personally believe that it's more important now, more than it's ever been before, and particularly at our HBCUs, simply because higher education is very competitive, and students are more aware about what they want when they're choosing an institution. So therefore, I believe that HBCUs should take a closer examination into their customer service levels, so something that has not necessarily been a strategic priority in the past. So when we think about, HBCUs and our rich history, which was built on service, and then when we also think about, some of the issues that we've been faced with, such as enrollment, attrition and retention rates, as well as budget restraints, I believe that HBCUs must make the connection between customer service and student satisfaction, simply because there is a direct impact on things such as revenue, profits, and an overall balanced budget for the institution. the same way that customer service fosters, customer satisfaction in a business setting, I believe that's influenced as well when we talk about student satisfaction with student engagement from an HBCU standpoint. So, what exactly is customer service? So according to an article that was written by Lee Buchanan, customer service is the provision of service to customers before, during, and after an interaction. The perception of success of such interactions is dependent on employees, and I put emphasis on employees, who can adjust themselves to the personality of the guest. Now, I'd really like to spend a moment and just really highlight the second sentence of that definition. The perception of success of such interactions is dependent on employees who can adjust themselves to the personality of the guest. So now for me and maybe others, that is a clear indication that customer service begins with us. So therefore, we must have good self-awareness of our moods, our behaviors, just to ensure that the service experience is off to a great start with our students. So now we're going to transition into the very first engagement activity, and I want you to think about the work that you do and create your personal definition of customer service and share it into the chat. If you will, just take about 60 seconds to do so, and just really think about the work that you do and create your personal definition of customer service and share it into the chat. Okay. Well, let me just go ahead and also start. So I see some panelists mentioning, customer service is honoring the reason in which a student, staff, etc. comes to my office and integrating how my services can assist. Thank you for sharing. Now, I'll also be an active participant in this exercise as well, and share what my personal definition of customer service is. And that personal definition for me is to simply provide an experience to the students that I engage with as if I would provide an experience to a guest that I welcome into my home. So thank you all for sharing. Those are some great things that you mentioned into the chat. So one thing I would say is hang on to that definition, have it on display somewhere in your office or your workspace, just to serve as a constant reminder to deliver the best service possible to the students that you serve. This will serve as a great accountability tool for you as you continue to do the work that you are tasked to do each and every day. So now we're going to venture into learning about a new and easy customer service philosophy. So take a moment and tell me, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you see this displayed on the screen? Guest over customers. Take a moment, share it into the chat, and just share, what do you think this means? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see guest over customers? Guests stay longer than customers. Okay, I like that. I appreciate you participating there. So I like that. I really appreciate that. So let's just say, instead of treating your students as if they are customers, what if we treated our students as if they were guests that we welcomed into our home or our place of residence? Now, I'm going to presume that most of the folks on the webinar, those of you who are watching the replay, are familiar with Airbnb. And in the world of Airbnb, those of us who, those who use their space to host travelers are competing for a title of superhost status, right? So this term is used to pretty much describe, hosts who have done a fantastic job of providing a great experience to travelers that they welcome into their lodging spaces. Now, a major benefit of this superhost status is pretty much the positioning of their listing and when future guests search for homes in their area. And ultimately, as a result, their listing is booked more frequently, which subsequently translates to more revenue. So if we take it a little bit further and we bring it into the higher ed space, particularly at our HBCUs, what if your team was able to shift their minds and operate to a degree as if they were Airbnb hosts and adopt this easy to retain customer service philosophy, guest over customers? I firmly believe that this will be the start of, your institution being on a path to increasing the service credibility at your institution, but then as well, as we mentioned before, it helps get those Airbnb guest spots booked more frequently, which translates to more revenue. So keep that in mind, guest over customers. So we'll transition into our next engagement, which is to think about everything that sends you into a bad mood and share 3 of them into the chat. Share 3 of them into the chat. Take about 30 seconds to do so, and just share everything that sends you into a bad mood. Lack of respect. Absolutely, indeed. Lack of respect would definitely send me into a bad mood. Thank you for sharing that. So what this lets me know is that you are aware of what sends you into a bad mood, which, as I mentioned earlier, because customer service starts with us, we must have good self-awareness of our moods and our behaviors just to make sure that the service experience is off to a great start. Now, for me, it's undoubtedly showing up late to an event gets me every time. So again, make sure that we are self-aware of our moods and our behaviors of things that will send us into a bad mood so that we don't unintentionally put that energy off onto the students that we engage with. Now, we'll move right along, which will bring us to the first of 5 elements to boost the customer service environment at HBCUs, and that is to simply share a smile. Your smile, it becomes contagious. Your smile opens the door to establishing trust. And lastly, your smile creates a welcoming and friendly environment. When you're sharing a smile, it also takes less energy than it does to frown, and it definitely gets those feel-good hormones flowing throughout your body, which puts you in a better mood. It's simple, but yet it is very highly effective. And this is something that you can also practice if you're on the telephone with the student. Although the student may not be seeing you physically smile, but again, the purpose of it is to make sure you're putting yourself in, getting those feel-good hormones flowing throughout your body so that you can then move forward with providing the best service experience for the students that you're serving. So again, simple, but very much highly effective. Now, again, as I mentioned before, this wasn't going to be your typical webinar where you just sit and receive information. So with that, here is another engagement activity that we have. And it is simply using the chat. List 3 things that you can do to ensure the students that you serve have your undivided attention. Take another 30 seconds or so, and then I'll read a couple of the responses. What can you do to ensure that your students have your undivided attention. Bingo. I see someone in the chat. They mentioned active listening. Someone says talk with students, not as students. Man, that's great. That's great. I really appreciate you all really engaging into this conversation. So those are very much great. Now, one in particular that I would like to offer, which would be the second element in how do we, boost the customer service environment at our HBCUs, is to simply listen with your heart, right? So when you listen with your heart, you limit mistakes. It allows you the opportunity to gather all of the facts, and it sets you up or puts you in a position to provide better solutions to the students that you're engaged with. Listening to your heart also means putting your active listening skills into play, as someone mentioned into the chat. And it also shows your students that you believe that there is value in what they are saying. It can also be utilized to resolve conflict for those students who are or may not be having the best service experience. But the second element, listen with your heart, because it's going to help you limit those mistakes, allow you to gather all of the facts, and put you in a situation to provide better solutions. Now, next engagement activity. What color is the dress? Some of you may have seen this dress float around the internet before. It's a dress that has turned into a big debate, right? I see someone said, oh, I remember this. So take about 30 seconds and just type into the chat, what color is the dress? Do you see blue and black, or do you see white and gold? I see someone put in the chat, they said they see blue and black. Interesting. Do we have one more? Maybe one more? What color is the dress? Blue and black, or white and gold? Okay, all right. So I see a blue and black. Well, let me just share with you all that I see white and gold. All right, so you may be saying, oh no, how do you see white and gold? So as you can see, there's a split in terms of, what color, we think the dress really is. I see white and gold. Someone in the chat, they saw blue and black. And what I like particularly about this activity is the fact that it sparks a couple of questions. And one of those questions is, how in the world do they see colors that are different from me, right? And then the second question is, well, what is wrong with their vision, right? Those are a couple of questions that may come up when someone sees a color that's different from yours. But the point that I'm trying to make, or the point that I am making, is that the students that we serve at HBCUs, they come from various backgrounds. They have different perspectives, and they see things through a different set of lens, which is okay. So therefore, I think that it is very important that we keep this in our minds as we engage and assist our students when they are navigating through various processes at our institutions. And for most of them, or for some of them, this is their very first time navigating those processes. So I think it's very important that we keep this in mind as we're assisting them. They're coming into our environment, one that is comfortable with us, but we have to remember that it's brand new to them. So I believe that what we as higher education professionals must be able to do, or what makes this more meaningful, is when we're able to step back, put ourselves into the perspective or the shoes of our students. And this translates into the third element, which is to display authentic empathy. Now, we're all familiar with the term empathy and what it means, but there's a uniqueness, I believe, about a person or an individual who is able to display authentic empathy. And that is simply to remove biases and opinions. Definitely, you want to communicate to the students that you understand them. And then last, you want to genuinely offer your assistance. Um, I believe that, your ability, our ability to display a very high level of authentic empathy allows the student to be more willing to accept a reasonable solution that we may have to offer in the future. And to really drive home on this point, here's a quote that I'll leave with you. As you can see, I like quotes a little bit, but here's a quote that I'll leave with you for you to remember. And that is, true empathy requires you to be open-minded, patient, and objective, right? Very challenging, and it can be so hard for us to do. But again, true empathy requires you to be open-minded. It requires you to be patient and objective. Now, before we continue, I'll just stop, do a quick little recap of everything that we've covered so far. So we've gone over 3 elements to boost the customer service environment at our HBCUs. And the first one is to simply share a smile. The second one is to listen with your heart. And now third, display authentic empathy. So we'll go into yet another engagement activity. And again, take about 30 seconds using the chat. List one thing you should not do when you are offering an apology to your students. One thing you should not do when offering an apology to your students. Now, for me, I would say providing an excuse is something that you should not do. So I'm curious to see if we have anyone who would like to, share one thing you shouldn't do when offering an apology. Provide a solution that you do not know will work. Indeed, indeed. Criticize the behavior. Absolutely. Again, make promises. When we talk about criticizing the behavior, we think about, as I mentioned, they're coming into this environment, many of them for the very first time. So we have to make sure we're not critical of that. We have to make sure that we are educating them on how to navigate the processes and offer our assistance genuinely. Making promises is definitely one, right? Don't want to make any promises, especially promises that you are unable to keep. So all of these, I believe, are very correct. You should not do any of them when issuing an apology. And now we're going to come now. Well, let me say this. There will come a time when you must issue an apology. And because we are all human, right, and mistakes are inevitable, therefore, this leads us into our 4th element of how to provide a great customer service experience in the HBCU environment, and that is to simply master the art of an apology, right? So mastering the art of an apology is simply, keeping it simple, keeping it straightforward, and then also keeping it sincere. There's a mistake that most people make when offering an apology, and that is to over apologize, continuing to apologize over and over and over and over and over again. But this doesn't really help the situation simply because there's no action that's following the apology. So if you find yourself in a position where you have to deliver or issue an apology to a student, do so in a very simple, straightforward, and sincere manner, and then immediately begin to move forward with action to correct the error. What the action does, or what the immediate action does, is it assures your students that, you value them and you are committed to serving them and assisting them with the situation that they may be experiencing at that time. Okay. Now, let's go into the last engagement, or maybe one more. But what I would say is take some time to develop a strategy that could be implemented at your institution to show students you are grateful for them and share it into the chat. Now, just to kind of give you some guidance on developing this strategy, there are a couple of questions that I'll share with you, to really help you craft your response. So the first question is, think about who is the student, or who is the student group that you're going to express your gratitude towards, and what will you do to express your gratitude. All right, take a few seconds, think about, something that you can do to express gratitude for the students that you serve. While you all are, thinking about, a strategy that could be implemented at your institution, I will share an example that we used at one of my former institutions. And it was very simple, right? It was the students, wasn't a particular student group, it was the entire student body. And it was around the time of Thanksgiving. And simply what we did at the institution, we as faculty and staff, we put on the hat of serving the students Thanksgiving dinner. We were in the cafeteria, we put on the aprons, we put on the gloves, and it was a buffet style. And they came through the line and we actually served them their meals for that particular day. It was something simple, but I believe it was very much impactful for the students that we serve, just to let them know how much we appreciate them. Because when we think about it, at the end of the day, without students, there isn't an institution. I see that someone placed in the chat that in their college days, they had a midnight breakfast and faculty and staff served us. Indeed, exactly. So just those simple things, and you can be creative. You can think outside of the box to come up with other strategies or events, things to really show the students that you really appreciate them. And then also make it intentional or make it a practice to do it on a regular basis. Have a consistent cadence around how often are we going to express to our students that we are grateful for them. And the most important piece is make sure it's genuine. Sometimes we can have these things set up on the calendar to say, every year at this time, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Let's just make sure if that is an approach that you're going to take, let's make sure that it is genuine and it is coming from a great place. So again, these are all, that was a great, phenomenal strategy that I would say there. And if you can take some of them, take it back to your campus. Now, this will take us into the final way in which we create or boost the customer service experience at our HBCUs, and that is to simply express gratitude, as we just talked about in that last engagement activity. So when we express gratitude, it is done by being creative, being intentional, and making it about the students. So let's just have a quick recap of everything that we've covered so far today, as it relates to 5 elements to boost the customer service experience in an HBCU environment. So for one, we want to make sure that we share a smile, right? It's contagious, it builds trust, and it creates a friendly environment. And it gets those feel-good hormones flowing through your body. Want to make sure that we listen with our heart. It shows the students that you believe that there is value in what they're saying. We want to display authentic empathy. Remember the quote, true empathy requires you to be open-minded, patient, and objective. We want to make sure that we master the art of an apology, make it simple, straightforward, and sincere, and don't over-apologize. And then last but not least, we want to express gratitude. We want to, be creative, be intentional, and we want to make it about the students. Now, I have a bonus one for you. You probably didn't realize that you would get a bonus, but the bonus is to Be mindful of your tone. It's said, or it's been said, that 10% of conflict is due to a difference in opinion, and 90% is due to the delivery and the tone of your voice. Now, the tone of your voice is made up of three things that you see here on the screen. It's made up of your pitch, your tempo, as well as your volume. Also, your tone is one of the many factors that students will assess to determine whether or not they trust you. And because the tone is totally controlled by you, again, customer service starts with us. It is important that you are mindful of your tone just to ensure you're conveying a message of trustworthiness to the students that you're serving. Now, before we wrap things up, I would like to have a quick giveaway. As I mentioned earlier, I am a self-published author of a book, Be My Guest, a guide for creating an ultimate service experience. Now, throughout the book, I use the word guest a number of times. So in the chat, guess the number of times it is used. And the person who comes close to that number without going over will receive a free copy of the book. Again, I use the word guest a number of times in the book. In the chat, guess the number of times it's used. Now, I see a question. It says, how many pages is the book? Now, I intentionally didn't share that. But since you asked, the book is a quick read. It's 80 pages. How many times do we use the word guest in the book? I see 12, I see 35. Do we have anyone else? 12 and 35, 58. All right. 7. Going once, going twice. Okay, all guesses come to an end. Now, I won't share the exact number, but 58 is closest without going over. So whoever said 58, please make sure that we get your contact information so that I can send you a copy of the book, Be My Guest, a guide for creating an ultimate service experience. And with that, I'd love to stay connected with you. So here's how you can get in contact with me. Parallel Inception is a consulting agency that I have the ability to lead. So if you'd like more information, you can email us at info@parallelinception.com. You can visit our website. We're also on social media at LinkedIn as well as Instagram. Definitely follow us for all things customer service. Our slogan is, we teach the value of customer service. So we'd love to stay in contact with you all if you're interested in knowing more. So again, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your time. I am going to stop my screen share and address any questions that we may have at this moment.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Jeffrey, for that presentation. I think, customer service is something that we really need to value, something that we do sometimes unintentionally, knowing that we're providing customer service. So definitely a topic that is relevant. And so one question that we have is, when you think about customer service, do you or in what ways does it differ from a smaller institution versus bigger institutions from an HBCU standpoint?
Yeah, this whole philosophy is one that is to try to keep this widely broached topic of customer service in a narrow lens, right? Which the word guest, right? So whether or not you're at a small institution or a large institution, at its core, we're working with students at some point on a one-on-one basis. And when we're working with them, if we keep this philosophy of guest over customers, it doesn't matter, right? Treating them, for one, as if they are guests that we would welcome into our home, and then also treating them as if how we would want someone to treat not only just us, but how we would want someone to treat our family members.
Next question is in regards to HBCUs. Do you think there's a particular area that focuses more on customer service than another?
Do I think there's a particular area that focuses more on it than another, or should?
Should, yes.
Okay, that should focus. No, as I mentioned in the presentation, I think from a global standpoint, customer service levels has not necessarily been a strategic push for HBCUs overall, right? We may, one could say, well, let's focus on the admissions office because they're the front of the institution, right? Well, I'd like to challenge that and push back a little bit, but all of us at some point could serve as the front of the institution. Students contact our offices thinking they're contact different offices on campus, thinking they're reaching the admissions office, or for whatever reason, students are reaching out to everyone on campus. So I don't think there should be emphasis placed on just one particular area. I think it's something globally that HBCUs should really focus on to make sure that we can provide our students with the best service. Because as we mentioned too, it has a direct impact on profits, revenues, and a balanced budget overall for the university. And everyone on the campus, in some form or fashion, their area impacts that, right? So from an admission standpoint, of course, I'm in that lane. It's how many new students can we bring to the institution? So how do we provide exceptional customer service so that we can increase the number of students we bring to the university? Maybe from the faculty, academic advising standpoint, how do we make sure that our customer service is top tier for the students who are currently here so that we can retain them, which ultimately translates to the revenues and the profits to that overall budget. So in short, or to make a long story short and a short story long, I think it should be addressed globally from a global standpoint.
And you talked about it in the beginning of your presentation, but can you reiterate your reasoning for using guests over customers?
Yeah, so I'll dive a little bit more into guest, right? So for starters, I talk about it around treating students as if they are guests that we would welcome into our homes, right? It's a simple approach. When you invite someone over to your home, you want to make sure it's clean, it's neat, it smells good. That's one aspect of it as well. You want to make sure that they're able to feel comfortable when they enter that space. And then diving into guest is an acronym, right? The G stands for greeting. How do we greet the students? The U stands for undivided attention. Are we practicing those active listening skills that we talked about in the presentation? The E stands for empathize, right? How are we displaying authentic empathy? The S stands for solution, right? At some point, we're going to have to give students a solution, whether it's the solution that they want or not, but that goes to how do we master that art of an apology? And then last, the T stands for thanks. How do we express gratitude to those students that we're serving? And when we encompass all of those into the word guest, at its high level, they're guests that we welcome into our home, but on a lower level, we're utilizing those different stages of the acronym to make sure we're giving them the best service experience possible.
Awesome. So do we have any further questions? Any further questions regarding customer service at HBCUs? Any further questions? If not, Jeffrey, I'll give you the opportunity to say any last words, but on behalf of NASPA Region 3, I want to thank you for the opportunity to host you on today. to provide a little bit more clarity on how we at HBCUs can provide customer service to our students and stakeholders.
Dr. K, I just want to close out by saying thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak on a topic that is near and dear to me in front of the NASPA Region 3 audience. Again, I just want to close out by saying fundamentally, if we treat our students as if they are guests that come into our homes, that is a good start for making sure that we start off the service experience on the right track. So again, thank you for the time and looking forward to, maybe connecting in the future.
Yes, yes. And so I just want to let everyone know that the next webinar will be on September 29th at 12 p.m. Eastern. And we're talking about preserving self in the HBCU workplace. So we hope to see you again on September 29th for another webinar with HBCUs Educate. Thank you.